Our master of ceremonies is Paul Brown. I don't see Anthony on.
No, I think he'll be here.
Okay.
Laura, does it show Anthony's area over there in Shadow Lake down?
No, there, it looks like they're up. I'll look again. No, they're up.
Is our attorney here?
Yes.
This is Brian. I'm here.
Hey, Brian.
Howdy.
What time you got?
I got 6:04.
Should we get going? You can lead me through this.
Yep. If we've got a quorum, we can go ahead and get started.
We
Oh,
do.
we?
We
Hey, do we need for a quorum?
need three, and we've got Jen Ronk, Paul Brown, and Laura Norton.
Okay.
All right.
Go team.
Then we've got a quorum. Maureen, you've already started the recording?
I did.
Yep.
All right. Okay, then we'll get going. Welcome everybody to the Montgomery County MUD number 47 Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, June the 15th, 2021. As in prior meetings, I'll briefly go through our remote meeting procedures and then perform a roll call. To begin with, I need to remind everyone that meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we will continue the practice of having a roll call to vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely this evening so that we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I'll perform a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name or your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with the roll call for our board of directors, Anthony Cardell, absent. Paul Brown,
Present.
Laura Norton,
Here.
Cynthia Ullman, absent. Jennifer Ronk.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum of our board present, so we will move on to the roll call for Woodlands Water staff. Jim Stinson,
Present.
Mike Mooney,
Present.
Maureen Bourgeois,
Present.
Shelley Lawson Kennedy,
Present.
Jeannie Scott is out for CLE attendance. Do we have anyone else from Woodlands Water in the meeting this evening? Okay, we'll move on to Sandy Center River Authority staff. Ron Kelly,
Present.
Ed Shackelford,
Present.
Chris Meeks,
Present.
Matt Corley.
Present.
Anyone else from the River Authority in the meeting this evening?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to Mud 47 consultants. Do we have any Mud 47 consultants in the meeting today?
LJ Engineering, Donnie Reed.
Okay, any other Mud 47 consultants? All right, we'll move on to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public present in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well.
Barbara Hughes, Woodlands resident.
Dave Harlan on behalf of the Eagle Mead residents.
Tim Hartzell, resident.
Scott Hoffman.
Reese Geigerman, resident.
Mark Unlin.
Arthur Bredoff, resident.
Okay, this is Brian. Any other residents that have not been, or any other members of the public that have not been identified?
This is Dan Kopars with the developer.
With Howard Hughes, correct?
Yes.
Okay, any other members of the public? All right, Maureen, does that cover everybody who appears to be logged in?
I have everybody.
Okay, that will complete the roll call. Paul, I'll hand it over to you to begin the agenda.
All righty, let's call the meeting to order and
Well, Anthony arrived in the meantime, and Cynthia let me know that she's at an eye appointment.
okay, Anthony,
I am here. I apologize for being late.
okay.
Oh, and there's Cynthia right now. Very good. All five of us are here now.
Okay. I guess I'll go ahead and take the reins from Paul. We just finished standard item number 1. We'll go to number 2, receive comments from the public. It sounds like we have a lot of members from the public online today, which is great. I just want to remind everyone that we have a 2-minute limit for anyone that wishes to speak. That being said, who would like to speak today? Do we have someone?
I would, Barbara Hughes.
Okay, Barbara, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm just joining the meeting to ask about 5 questions before you purchase a bench in honor of the past MUD directors. If the directors need to be recognized, can they please do it privately with their own funds or use what our community already has in place by nominating the director to the community hometown heroes? And in using taxpayer money in celebrating 1 or 2 directors, is this really following the mission of MUD to act in ways that are fiscally responsible? Also, in purchasing the bench with taxpayer money, is this setting a precedent for other MUDs? And have y'all considered that this could be a never-ending costly expense and a burden for the residents you serve? Is this something that your residents really want? Is this something your constituents have been asked about? And my last thought is, if the MUD directors already receive some sort of payment and they have a staff that helps them do their job to their best ability, why isn't this just enough? Does the director really need additional accolades or approval or recognition by his or her peers?
Okay, Barbara, thank you. Is there anyone else?
This is Tim Hartzell. I would comment similar comments along with that. Again, trying to point out to the board the importance of being stewards of not necessarily your money, but making sure whether it's cinder tracks or benches, et cetera, that you consider the source of the money that's coming actually from the MUD district. So I would second the comments that were previously made.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
This is Mark Unlin.
Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Anthony. I would like to comment on 2 items on the agenda tonight. The first is the proposed bench that has been discussed already to be located in a township park. I urge you to not use public money for a bench. Your mission is water, to deliver, to drain, and to treat it. Your vision is to provide exceptional water service, and your mission is to manage our water with fiscal integrity and efficient business practices, responsive operations, infrastructure maintenance, community partnerships, and environmental stewardships. That's your mission. A park bench has nothing to do with that. So to spend public money for non-water use is outside your mission. We have a whole township that manages parks and has a budget and the mission to provide quality service. So if there is a need for a bench, we just need to have them install one. I have heard that the MUDs did provide a bench for a past director, but that was privately funded. And that seems to be the best approach. Since one of the directors last month even said this is a small amount of money, then y'all can just put up your personal money to fund the bench and not use public funds. However, if in this pandemic and lockdown and all the Zooming, we neglected to provide the outgoing directors with a wall plaque for their home office, then shame on us. If that hasn't happened, then it really does need to be done ASAP. Just don't use public money on non-mission projects. The second comment is regarding the 1488 development that's on the agenda. I haven't seen any justification for the public to become a partner in this project. I don't know how much of a return, we don't know how much of a return we're going to get on the project. We don't know when the money is going to be paid back, and we don't know how long it will take for the project to be completed. So we should not provide public funds at risk until we have decided it's a good risk. Instead, we should consider some sort of tax break on the incremental property value, waiving the incremental tax until the infrastructure cost is recovered by the developer. That's essentially what we would be doing if we use public funding, but it keeps the risk with the developer who is managing the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there anyone else?
This is Scott Hoff.
Yes.
Everybody said plenty. I'll just reinforce the bench piece. So just go on record for one more asking why we're doing that.
Okay, thank you, Scott. And I'm sorry, Scott, what's the last name?
Hoffman, Hoffman.
Okay, thank you, Scott. And it sounded like I heard someone
Yes.
else.
Yes, this is Reese Geigerman. I live over in the Del Webb neighborhood on the east side, which borders on the property that would be part of the FM 1488 project. And in fact, some of that property would be right behind my house of what they're developing. However, it's a pretty good ways in from 1488. What we did notice was when we looked at the FEMA charts that there's a pretty significant floodplain going through that property, which also happens to be behind where our house and our specific section is. So we're just wanting to know exactly if they're building in that area, how are they dealing with the floodplain? Will they be coming in from 1488 so far as to impede or try to build over that floodplain?
Okay, thank you, Reese. Are there any other comments? Sorry about that. Hearing none, we will move on to item number 3, consider an act on request for adjustments to or relief from specific charges imposed by the district.
Actually, this is Mike. I do not have anything for MUD 47 this month.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Doesn't look like Jeannie's here today, but if there were, I'm sure she'd bring them to our attention. Time for the consent agenda. Is there any item, specific item that the director wanted to move out of the consent agenda? Okay, not hearing anything. Do I hear a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay. So all in favor, please say aye. We'll do the roll call. Paul,
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Cynthia,
Aye.
and Jennifer.
Aye.
Vote aye. Motion carries. We'll move on to number 9, regular agenda. Review and discuss WWA staff and drainage consultant information related to the Eagle Mead Residents Advocacy Coalition.
I will like to open this agenda item. Back at actually the end of last year, we met with the coalition regarding their concerns related to drainage, primarily drainage and the Del Webb development. Since that time, we have had at least one on-site meeting with the Eagle Mead residents, and Donnie Reed and I have had a number of meetings with the Del Webb representatives and their staff and engineering consultants. In your packet is a very detailed, lengthy document that has been prepared regarding the concerns that were raised by the Eagle Mead residents. My intent is not to go through that in detail tonight. Certainly, we're available to answer any questions you may have, but it's a lengthy document, a very detailed document that may take some time to digest and absorb. But I thought it was appropriate to share this draft document with the MUD 47 directors with the agreement and concurrence from the board that we could further meet with the Eagle Mead residents regarding this document and work on any additional concerns that they may have regarding the information in there. And at some point, finalize it, bring it back to this board as a final document. We also have another agenda item after this one to look at a draft memorandum of understanding with the Del Webb Property Owners Association, again, in draft form, to try to ensure that Del Webb is a good neighbor and maintains the drainage easement and the underground drainage system that has been installed between MUD 47, the Eagle Mead residents, and the back, running along the back property line of the Del Webb residents. Donnie Reed is here tonight and has some exhibits that he will go through regarding drainage as it relates to Eagle Mead. But I will tell you that we, just in summary, we do think that there needs to be some additional work in the mud drainage easement and maybe beyond that is in that kind of dead zone between the back fence of Eagle Mead and the back fence of the Del Webb residents. We also discovered during our field investigations that a storm inlet was constructed to drain a vacant piece of property that is owned by the Howard Hughes Corporation. Our site investigation and additional engineering field work revealed that that inlet was actually constructed at an elevation that wasn't adequate to drain the Howard Hughes land. The inlet was put there with the intent to drain that property. And because of not draining properly, a number of trees have died over the period that the property's been inundated, and it's referred to in the document often as a swamp area. Well, I'm happy to report that that inlet has been adjusted. The Del Webb Property Owners Association, with their engineering support, did adjust that inlet, and it's my understanding that the Howard Hughes Corporation will be putting a swale across that vacant property to ensure that it drains properly and doesn't continue to be a swamp. So that was an accomplishment from our work over the last several months. along with the detailed information in this document. So with that brief introduction, Donnie, you want to go through a few exhibits that will also become a part of this response to the Eagle Mead residents?
Hey, Jim, this is Paul
Yes.
Brown. I just want to understand some facts here. I read through this entire document today. Obviously, we've been discussing this for quite some time. We've had people out there, et cetera, et cetera. Number one, okay, on page 19, I'm trying to understand, number one, what is the problem here? Do we have a problem? It says that the Del Webb drainage plan, it doesn't work. Somebody made that decision, or is that just a hypothesis? And no plan for drainage path maintenance. So my question is, we just went through, God, it seemed like I was with Noah on the ark for the last 4 or 5 weeks with rain, okay? Did we have houses flooded or properties flooded during that period?
No houses were flooded, and I'm not aware of any properties being flooded because of drainage off of the Del Webb site.
Did we have any drainage problems because of the existing environment, even on the Woodlands property? Let's call it the Woodlands property, which is in those communities.
Well, there is a portion of the Del Webb development that historically has drained into Mud 47 property. And there is a portion of that I think continues to drain into that drainage easement and that open area between the rear fences of Eagle Mead and the rear fences of Del Webb. I think there's some things that we can do to improve drainage in that area, but we don't see this as a drainage plan that doesn't work. We see it as a drainage plan that needs to be maintained, and a memorandum of understanding is in the process of being developed. And I think that is a valid part of that system continuing to function as designed. But
okay, I'm just like I said, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I'm just trying to establish the facts here. You know, if we're going to solve for something, I want to make sure that we're solving, you know, for an identified problem or issue that needs to be corrected. The other thing was that if I recall the initial discussions with those two communities, there was a low area that was brought up and I don't know what they call it, but there was a low area that was assembling and collecting water, okay, that was referenced in those various discussions by members of the community. Can you clarify what that is?
yes, that is the area that is referred to as the swamp in this document that when I spoke that there was an inlet that we discovered was constructed at an improper elevation to receive water from a vacant Howard Hughes property. That's the area where water was not draining properly, and it was ponding during and after rainstorms.
So is your position that that's been corrected by that action?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's in the process. The inlet was lowered by
Okay.
Del Webb, and Howard Hughes, I am told, will be putting a swale on their property to make sure everything functions properly.
Okay. All right.
I had a question about that part too. You said the inlet's been corrected, so this is just basically earth. There's no concrete or anything like that that needed to be corrected?
No, the inlet was a concrete inlet that was adjusted.
Okay.
A concrete inlet entering into a storm drain pipe.
So they had to basically dig it out and then lower it?
Break it out and adjust it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I did go through the document and I did see one of the recommendations is to, do a periodic assessment. And I think that's a great idea if we could do it pre-hurricane season for all of our drainage. I don't know. I know that we continually look at these things, but that seems like a great time of year to do this. Jim, did you have anything else? Or we're gonna
I
turn it
just,
over to
Donnie had a couple of exhibits that he was going to go through. And again, this is an overview tonight. With the board's approval, we'll be happy to meet with this coalition, the Eagle Mead Coalition, and then report back to the board next month.
I guess that's my cue to start. Let me screen share here. Hold on just a second. Let me make sure I got this correct.
Looks good.
Everybody can see my screen?
No.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So what you see right here is was the exhibit that came from the Eagle Mead residents that talked about their 3 areas of concern. Area of concern, y'all can see my cursor, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Area of concern was, this is, Paul, this is the area where the low spot was that Jim was talking about, the inlet, that
Right.
this area was ponding water and holding quite a bit of water. So that's one area of concern. The other area of concern was they were thinking that the development of Del Webb would be draining extra water into these lots that back up to the Del Webb. The third area is this existing pond that's on basically in the middle of Del Webb, but to the west of the Eagle Mead residence, where drainage from this property would go into this pond and then would go south, as this red area shows, onto Crown Ridge ditch and take out water. So area 1, 2, and 3 were the areas of concern. What I have here is an exhibit that shows existing topo prior to. On the background, you can see the development of Del Webb, but what I have on there is the topo that's prior to development. And what we have down here in the bottom right-hand corner, or the southeast corner, is basically a shaded area that shows this is area of existing drainage that would be going towards the Woodlands property. Down here in the southwest corner, you have a little bit of area, 3.5 acres, that would be draining to the Eagle Mead, or the Eagle Mead residence on the west side. This is an exhibit that Del Webb had sent to us, or that when they first did this, they'd sent it to us later. But when they first started looking at this project of showing this, these are the drainage patterns of existing topography of where it was going. And you can see that they had approximately about 20 acres that was draining kind of to this area of Eagle Mead and also to this pond that we're talking about. So there's 20 acres that was originally going to that. Obviously it's undeveloped flow, but this water was draining to this pond and then south to the Crown, through the Woodlands property to the Crown Ridge ditch. They also had a plan that they were going to put interim swells along the southern boundary to collect water and to keep excessive runoff going during construction. And I know that was one of the areas of concern from a lot of the residents, saying that that may not have happened during construction. And being out there a couple of times, there were probably some things that they needed to do better, but we're past that point now. Then the final exhibit that they had provided was showing what the ultimate plan was, that they have a swell and a storm sewer system that runs on the southern end on both sides, and it collects water that runs from the back lots of the Del Webb property on the south side and collects it into different spots. This one runs up and ties into a storm sewer system. It goes north. This one goes into this pond. This one runs to the west and goes into a storm sewer, which is also where those inlets were that we're talking about needed to be lowered, and takes this north. Now this exhibit right here, I have a series of exhibits that will show section 5, section 7, and section 8. These are the southern boundaries of Del Webb that border Mud 47's boundary. As you can see, when I show here in this area that's highlighted in red are the lots that will be draining, that could potentially drain towards this storm sewer system that will collect that runoff. So initially you showed that there was about this much area that was draining to the south. Well, now you only have this little area right back here that's draining to the south, but it's collected in a storm sewer system and a swell and collects it into their storm sewer. So initially you had natural runoff coming this way. Now all this drainage is caught into the streets. The only portion that would be going towards the lots is from this red line down, and it's collected in inlets back here. You can see, here's the construction plans. You can see that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Donnie, that's an environment that we've gone out previously and inspected, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In the development. And
Yes, sir.
that's the line of houses that's the last line of houses on that side, right?
Yes, sir. This is on the east side of the Del Webb, the southeast side of Del Webb.
Right. And initially those houses had no, they had flat roofs, no way to direct water. Has that been corrected, or is that still, do those homes, the roofs of those homes still direct water into that area?
It's my understanding that the roof lines drain to the front, but the storm sewer that's on the southern boundary in the back lots, there are inlets and there's a swell that collects water that is sized to handle all the runoff from this lot.
Okay.
So from looking at it, if water lands on the roof and runs to the north, probably about half of this lot's going to go to the north. But if somehow some of it comes off and gets to the side lot, it will be collected in a storm sewer that's actually sized for the entire lot.
Okay, great.
You see this red area shows all of this area, but I really think probably half of it's going north. They're just conservative, standard thing that we typically do in a lot of development.
Got it. Thank you, Donnie.
Sure. Then as we go to the next one, same thing on section 7, you can see the same type of pattern. Here's the drainage plan from 7, same type of thing. Section 8, similar. Construction plans, similar type of thing. And this is the area over by Eagle Mead. One thing I do want to point out here is if you look where my cursor is now, Eagle Mead is in this area right in here. When the developer and the engineer designed this storm sewer, which is running right along here and taking this storm sewer up, they sized this storm sewer right here down in this corner, and this is the same picture right up here, so it's right here. They sized it to take in all of this area that is the Woodlands property, which is that area that was holding water. So it was sized because this is the natural topography that's draining that way. So they sized this storm sewer to handle that. It's just when they went out and built it, they built that inlet about 1.5 feet too high based on this topo. That's one of the things that we went out and found that it was too high, had them go correct it, and now they're in the next process of getting that finished. This is just a bigger picture
Donnie?
to show. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just when is that project scheduled to be completed?
The
lowering.
inlet, the lowering's done. The lowering's done. It was done 2 weeks ago. And so it is at an elevation that should be able to drain all the Woodlands property. Just the Woodlands Howard Hughes is just going to go out in the field and cut a small swell. There may be mounds or dirt that are kind of blocking some of the water from getting to it. So they're just going to kind of knock those out to give it a path to get there, is what the plan.
Sure. And do we know when they're doing that? When Howard Hughes is doing
My
that?
understanding, they should be going out there within the next month to do it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
So this picture right here is just an overall of the 3 areas I showed. Here's section 5, here's section 7, here's section 8. If you look back on that first picture, this area right in here was all draining to this lake, and it's about 20 acres is what it initially is. Per their plans now, only thing that's draining to that lake is 5 acres. And so if I take 20 acres of undeveloped flow, and then I take 5 acres of developed flow, that's roughly about the same. So the amount of water that's coming this way is the same now as it was pre-development. We looked at their calculations. I did a quick calculation as well. It's pretty close to the same. Last thing I wanted to show, this was the plat for that was in the Del Webb set of plans. It had 68 lots, I believe, that was in it. One of the other issues that came up was, excuse me, Del Webb went back and replatted this area. And I keep forgetting, Jim, they were either increasing the lot sizes and adding more lots, or they were either adding more lots or decreasing the number of lots they had out there. Without them changing the boundary or really changing street patterns, it doesn't matter if you increase the number of lots or decrease it. The standard calculations and designs that we do for storm sewer is basically the same, no matter if you have 100 lots out there, if you have 50 lots out there. So I was just using it as a reference because that was one of the questions that also came up from the residents. It's if the storm sewer and the calculations are going to be the same no matter what, because we use it on a percentage of impervious area and it's all the same. Those were the exhibits that went with my went with the report that's in your package. Like Jim said, we need to sit down we'd like to sit down with the residents again, kind of go over that in a little more detail, explaining what we found and what we saw. But if you have any questions, let me know.
So I guess what I'm trying to understand here is do you guys have a process for, I see the comments in, starting on page 19, but who's going to make a recommendation on this? We've got experts on this. We've had experts in the past, Jim. I understand the agreement with Del Webb's HOA, which I think is a great thing. Again, I'm trying to understand, nobody's really, this is about, mitigation of water problems, okay? And I'm trying to understand, or maybe somebody can call out, and I thought I heard it before, that there were no water problems for the residents. So, as you know, and I voted for in the past, lots of improvements for different areas that we've invested in to correct problems that are just natural outcomes from growing communities. So I mean, how do we get to that understanding?
I think that would come from the follow-up meeting and discussion with Eagle Mead and our staff and our drainage consultant, and be reported back to you at your next meeting. Okay, and when you do that, are we going to have, if there are things are we going to have specifics on things that need to be done, and the beginnings at least of some scoping of activity and cost associated with correcting those things if we do have problems? Yes, again, the finding that Donnie and I have is we believe there needs to be some additional grading in the area between the two fences, of the fence of Eagle Mead and the fence of Del Webb, which there's partially a mud 47 drainage easement there. We think that the ponding on the vacant land owned by Howard Hughes has been corrected. We think that with the elevation adjustments of the inlets, and that the final portion of that would be installing a swale to facilitate that drainage. And I think that is what we will report to you next month.
Okay, and how does that information, is that information only going to get back to the residents by way of our board meeting, or are you working, I don't know whether this is the appropriate, working with the local residents group to, walk through these things, or is that process finished?
No, we're recommending that we get your support to meet with the Eagle Mead Coalition over the next 30 days to go through this report and their response to that, their findings, and report back to you at the next meeting.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Jim.
And of course, the other component is the memorandum of understanding, which is the next agenda item with the Del Webb Property Owners Association.
Right.
Does that address the maintenance? Because that was my other question. Is I know there was some concern from the residents of Eagle Mead on whether or not the Del Webb properties were appropriately maintaining their drainage structures.
It does. That is the purpose of the MOU.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good. Shall we move to item 10?
I think so. Laura, I thought you had a question, but maybe.
No, I just wanted to
ask
thank
for you.
Donnie. Yeah, thank you, Donnie and Jim, for your work on this and reaching out to the residents. I appreciate it for sure.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on then to item number 10, review and discuss draft memorandum of understanding with MUD 47 Del Webb property.
And in your packet is the draft document that has been submitted to the Del Webb Property Owners Association. I don't think as of today we've gotten their final comments, but this was, the draft was prepared by Donnie. I think I will just tell you the final document will be on a MUD 47 letterhead with hopefully some agreement, signature, concurrence with the Del Webb Property Owners Association.
Yeah, I guess my only comment, I think the list sounds really good. I'm glad that they're going to be doing quarterly reports. Can we just make sure to get an agenda item on in case there's something that we need to know about that comes up in the quarterly reports to make sure that we're discussing it?
We can absolutely do a report to the MUD 47 board as those quarterly inspections and reports are done. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Right, and I might think we may need to, I'd like to recommend that you put some definitions in here because this MUD board may have a better understanding than what a swale is or inlet, and that's a limited better understanding. The HOA may not. So I think to have things in there like visually inspect inlets in section 8, that there's a map that shows, hey, these are what we're talking about, or this is the pond that we're talking about, so that 10 years from now, whoever's on that HOA knows what we're talking about. Keep that institutional knowledge going forward.
Good suggestion. Yes, sir.
Any other comments or recommendations from the board? Okay. So not hear anything. We'll move on to item, let's see here. Item 11, receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Divisions report.
Good evening, directors. This is Matt Corley. You all should have a copy of the Woodlands Monthly Operations Report. I believe it's on page 30 of your packet. Just like to highlight the surface water groundwater blend ratio fiscal year to date. It's 49% groundwater, 51% surface water. Also, we did not have any permit violations for the month of May. Be happy to answer any other questions you might have regarding the report. If there are no questions, I believe Mr. Kelling has an update.
I do have one question. A while back, and I believe it was this meeting, and I don't know who owned it. And I see that on page 33, there's 4.0 financial data, and financial data is not available for this report. I assume somebody's working on that, or it appears that it says that. Included in that, is that going to be, will that give us the dollars that we've accumulated in terms of lost revenue from non-participants in the GRP, as well as the various suits, so that we have a run rate view of that as directors?
This is Chris Meeks. I can answer that one. I can answer
Thanks,
both of
Chris.
those. On the first question regarding the financials, you are correct. This is one of those odd months where the MUD meetings actually fell before the end of our close date. So we do not have May financials for the Woodlands, but in July meetings, we'll provide the May and June financials. So we are behind, but that will only include the Woodlands Division financials. Anything related to GRP, we can get that information to Jim separately and he can pass along.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And this is Ron Kelly. I'd just like to add thanks to all those who participated in the Lone Star public hearing, who provided comments, who showed up. I know Paul was there, and Laura was there, and others. It was a good showing. We had 12.5 people. Actually, the whole room was filled with Woodlands folks, except for Lone Star staff and board members. I appreciate all the comments and all the hard work that everybody has done so far. Just a reminder, comment period is still open until July 19th. The GMA 14 will vote on the DFCs. They're scheduled for October the 6th. There's been talk that that is not going to happen. It's either going to be before or after. We haven't heard a date yet. As soon as we get a date, we'll let everybody know. But again, thanks for everybody's participation.
Hey, Ron, could I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
I guess that was their only meeting, right, for public comments?
That was our public hearing.
They'll have
I'm
a
sorry?
July
They will have a July board meeting in which comments could be offered.
No, I understand that. So my question is, I was thrilled to see that, we had so many folks from the Woodlands. And my second question, I guess, or the first question really is, where's the rest of the communities that are affected by the pending decision? Are they not in support of, are they not, as concerned as we are? Are we the only ones, who've got our bowels in an uproar over this thing? Or, where's the rest of that geographic area?
One thing's for sure is that they don't currently buy surface water from SJRA. So where we have that education, they don't. And we try to educate. I've reached out to James Met's office, Bender's Landing Homeowners Association, East Montgomery County Improvement District, Kingwood, you name it. And if you can name more, I would like to, have those contacts and try to reach out to them to get more engagement from that group that's going to sink 3 feet and already is experiencing flooding at 99 and 59.
And also to add to that, I think that Laura has a good point. There's only 7 folks or 7 groups that receive surface water. I believe also that their idea of engagement is submit letters, submit resolutions, submit comments in writing, not necessarily travel to the hearing or tie into the hearing and offer comments. I mean, they make it pretty easy by being able to log in and make comments, but that's been frankly a challenge this whole several years.
Okay, got it. Just was curious.
And their representative of East County is Jonathan Prykrell, who's on that Lone Star board and has said that they don't have a flooding problem in East County. So that's their representative on Lone Star.
So anyway, I just want to thank everybody's involvement in that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ron, and Chris and Matt. Appreciate it. We'll move on to number 12, receive and discuss SGRA Woodlands Division budget.
This is Chris Meese again. This item's on the agenda in case there's any questions on the budget we presented last month.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like we have any questions. We'll move on to item number 13, receive the attorney's report.
This is Brian. Thank you, Anthony. I've been reporting to boards this meeting cycle about our the status of remote meetings. So the governor did renew yet again the disaster proclamation that allows for remote meetings last Monday, and those, as we talked about before, are renewed in 30-day segments. But we do anticipate that that's going to be winding down if the COVID cases remain as low as what we've seen for a number of months now. We are in communication with the governor's office and have been advised that we would receive advance notice before the governor would be lifting that proclamation so that we could have an orderly transition for our district clients to in-person meetings. But we haven't got any indication of exactly when that date will be at this point. For our district clients that meet at our office, we are preparing to be able to accommodate in-person meetings for them beginning after Labor Day in September. For those districts that would like to meet in person, even if the disaster proclamation is still in place. At the Woodlands Water meeting last week, we did talk about a more accelerated time frame for the Woodlands. That time frame would involve in-person trustee meeting next month, and then if the MUD boards were agreeable, moving forward with in-person MUD meetings in August. That would allow a little bit of time to transition back into in-person, work out any kinks. Don't expect there will be, in going back to our in-person meeting arrangements. And then we would be teed up for all of our MUDs to meet in August, unless there was a particular MUD that didn't want to do so. And we would have items on next month's agenda for each MUD board to vote on whether they would like to go back to in-person meetings in August. One question that has come up from a handful of directors is whether or not districts will have the ability to hold, in essence, a hybrid in-person / virtual meeting if they wanted to do that. In other words, have a quorum of directors at the in-person meeting location at the Woodlands Water Administrative Building, and then have one or two directors call in remotely. And the answer to that question is it's a little bit complicated, but basically district cannot avail itself of the disaster proclamation if it has a quorum in person. The way the suspension of the in-person meeting requirements under the proclamation is set up is that it suspends a provision under the Open Meetings Act under 551-125 that still requires for a quorum in person to be difficult or impossible. And if you have a quorum that's actually at the in-person meeting site, then it's not difficult or impossible. It's actually happening. So you cannot have a meeting in person at JPA where you have a quorum present, but rely on the disaster proclamation to have folks dial in remotely. If you have two directors that are at the in-person meeting place, then you don't have a quorum, and you could have the proclamation remote meeting option and have the directors who are in person, dial in or participate in Zoom with the folks who are remote. So that that is available. However, there is a provision, and we've talked about this for a couple of the new board members. You may have not been around for the discussion, but a handful of sessions back, the legislature did enact a law that allows for districts to meet partially remote if they through a video conference option. And there's some very specific requirements in that provision of the Texas Open Meetings Act. That's 551-127 of the Open Meetings Act. And we did look into this several years ago when the bill was first passed, and ultimately staff had come to the conclusion that what would be required in terms of audio visual equipment would be too expensive and difficult to get into place to allow for that for districts to be able to use that video conferencing option. Now, a lot has changed from then until now. You know, everybody has taken a crash course in virtual meeting technology. You know, Zoom, which was kind of on the fringes of what businesses knew and worked with a year, 2 years ago, is now, you know, commonplace for all kinds of personal and professional meetings. Maybe a lot more affordable and maybe a lot easier to implement the remote meeting option now under that provision. So staff is going to take a look at that again and see if that would be available to districts. One thing that is of note under that provision of the Open Meetings Act is that it is video conferencing, not just telephone. So what we have right now under the governor's proclamation is we're actually meeting under the telephone conference provision exception to the Open Meetings Act. But districts that want to do more than teleconference, they can do video, and that's what the Woodlands districts have chosen to do. They have Zoom through video with a telephone conference component. The provision that would have to be used if you had a hybrid scenario would require video conferencing of the folks, the board members who are participating remotely. A dial-in would not be an option. So that's just something to keep in mind. So we are going to take a look at that, but right now we are hoping that we'll be able to get back into person meetings in August. So that's where we stand on meetings. Happy to answer any questions, but otherwise that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from the board? Okay. So thanks again, Brian, and we'll move on to item number 14, receive and act upon staff information regarding the upcoming MCAD Board of Directors election.
We reported last month that Metro Center MUD had voted to notify the Montgomery Central Appraisal District that they wanted to have a candidate in the special purpose district election. You may recall Arthur Bredehoff had offered his support in that arena if no one else was interested, and no one else stepped forward. So this month we are, the MCAD board is requesting a nomination of an individual to be a candidate. I do expect at least one or two other special purpose districts to probably put forth a candidate that will be on the ballot. But actually, Metro Center MUD did pass a resolution or approve the resolution with Arthur to be the candidate. So there's no action required of your MUD tonight, but if you're so inclined to adopt the resolution showing your support for Arthur as well, I think that would be a good thing.
I would agree with that, Jim. He's our guy, and if we can't recommend our own guy, you know.
All of the MUDs prior to you have supported Arthur as well, so let's keep it going.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve a resolution supporting Arthur Bredehoff as our MCAD candidate?
I'll move. Jennifer Ronk.
Second, Laura Norton.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so we'll do the roll call for the ayes and nays. Paul, how do you vote?
Aye.
Laura,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Cynthia?
Aye.
Okay, and I'll vote aye, so motion carries. Thank you. All right, and then we'll move on to item number 15, receive update on proposed FM 1488. If there is an update.
Anthony, this is Mike. It looks like Dan just dropped off, so he may be trying to reconnect.
Okay, well, in the meantime, I guess we can table that for now and move on to item number 16. We'll revisit if he comes back. Item number 16, consider and/or act on potential funding partnership with MUD 67 on Bear Branch, Panther Creek, Research Forest Drive drainage improvement.
I'll make the introduction to that topic, and Brian and I will